Hello. Happy Friday as I'm recording this. Back in the city, back in the home office. You might have noticed there's no plant behind me now. The plant wasn't doing too well. I have windows right here, but the plant was kind of in the corner and it wasn't getting a lot of light, and my wife had just this is a very old plant. It's like this tree that her mom had before even she was born, and they've cut, I forget what they call, where they cut bits off and then grow new parts out of. And so there's kind of the mother tree is at my mother-in-law's, and then this tree, and then my wife has had to cut it kind of down again, and then it was here, and because of COVID we've been moving it around. It was sometimes on the far side of my desk where you couldn't see it, then it was back here, but I kept bumping into it. It wasn't getting good light. It wasn't living its best life back there. So at least for the moment it's been removed to get some better light in another room. Hello, nothing. So I feel like I got all kinds of room back here. I could go crazy. And it also, now I probably could shine a better light on there and kind of blue screen the heck out of it, because I basically have this green screen behind me, though it's just the wall. But welcome, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I don't really have any programming notes. I'm not sure what I guess I do. I do have a programming note. I always say I don't, and then I do. I do. I've been doing a lot of contract work in my day job, and I had a contract that basically expired over Christmas, and now I'm back to a new place. They've actually been sending me all the equipment today, and I've been doing a lot of stuff with them, which is why I feel like I've been behind all the time. So I'll be doing that next week, starting up with that. I don't know what that's going to mean for my schedule, because I have no feel for what the workflow is like and like all the meetings and all that stuff is like. So, in other words, I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I'll have to just kind of take it one step at a time. They did send me, which I got today from UPS, a shiny new MacBook Pro, which I'm oogling and ogling at. And then the guy asked me, "Hey, let me know if you want dual monitors." Yes, please. Yes, please. Hey, Tonka Todd, Clan Todd. We went from what were we calling him before? The Club Todd, now to the Todd Brotherhood, Tonka Todd. Stochastic Agency says it'll work out. Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's something new. I feel like I like it. Just not sure how it's going to affect my schedule is all. We'll see. So if I'm not quite on the ball, I mean, how much am I on the ball anyway? But in terms of relatively speaking, if it seems even a little bit more scatterbrained next week, that is why. Ian says, "How can I work without two monitors?" Well, I have two monitors now, because if you notice, when I'm looking at the chat, I'm kind of looking away from the cameras there. I'm looking down here, but my two monitors, one is just my laptop monitor. The second one is one of these. They're actually really cool. I really like it. It's essentially a portable monitor, but it's really like they took I imagine taking something like an iPad Pro, but without all the innards in it, with basically just the display. It almost has a similar stand where it has a case, so you can kind of flip over in the stand, and you can take it with you. It's really light, and then it just plugs in. Mine I have is nice. It plugs in via Thunderbolt. My laptop is Thunderbolt 3. This has a Thunderbolt 3 plug. You just plug it in, and you're good to go. So when I'm moving around, I can just grab it, throw it in my bag with my laptop, and it adds basically no weight. And before COVID, it was really handy. Now with COVID, when I'm working at home a lot, I keep thinking about, should I try to invest in dual monitors or triple monitors or treble, quadruple, whatever monitors. But I've just been doing this one. So if they do send me these monitors, I will definitely hook those up, so I'll have full-time 2 or 3 monitors over here, and I can just put this foldable one away until I actually need it traveling. So yeah, that'll be cool. A monitor lizard for the third one. That's good, Terrence. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Let's see what's happening in the OSR. Oh, and I appreciate a couple people, every once in a while. No, so what happened was somebody posted, and I could look their name up. I probably should look up their name. It was Funky something or other. Hold on a minute. Let me look up, because they commented yesterday. Who was it? It was Fool's Foil. Why did I think Funky? Fool's Foil commented yesterday on one of my community posts saying, "Hey, my name had popped up in some other groups lately, and they love to see quote unquote fellow nerd. I'll take that, fellow nerd winning. I couldn't find it. I was looking around. They thought, well, maybe it was on Questing Beat and some of their community stuff. Couldn't find out what it was, but I did actually stumble upon a post here. I don't know if it'll come up here on the OSR where people are saying, hey, what are some smaller YouTube channels to follow? And a couple people suggested me, which, thanks. I forget, I don't have the thread up, but I just want to send a little shout out. If you do happen, I mean, look, it would be great if someone suggests, hey, which YouTube channel should you follow? And you want to throw my name out there, that is awesome. And thanks in advance. Obviously, don't have to, but if you feel the desire to do it, hey, that's great. But what I was going to say is I just like to know when things come up, because it's very hard just as a creator. Either my analytics or whatever games are poor. YouTube doesn't really give you much in terms of when it says, oh, here, these are things externally that have led to your channel. It's really basic. Like Reddit is just Reddit. It doesn't say where in Reddit or anything. So if it's Google search, it's just like, okay, they came from Google search. Okay, thanks, YouTube. So if you see out there that someone's mentioned me, and the other thing I found out was apparently it's, at least I couldn't figure out how to search either community, or when I'm trying to search YouTube or in Google trying to search things, it seems like community posts and comments and video comments don't get indexed. So I say all that to say, if you happen to see somewhere and someone mentioned me somewhere, shoot me over the link so I can check it out. Maybe say thanks to that person. Maybe it's somewhere I should be hanging out if it's not somewhere I'm hanging out already. Yeah, so that's all I have for that. We're looking at the OSR subreddit as is usual, and also let me know if my levels are okay. I know there's a level or a video a couple days ago where I was clipping a bit, and I sort of adjusted my levels slightly, and then I went to another place and I had to kind of fix my stuff. Now I'm back home and I didn't change anything, so hopefully my settings are still all good, but let me know if anything is amiss. With all that out of the way, let me give this a refresh, and let's get down to brass tacks, as they say. So we got some giveaways, some print proofs. Okay, here we go. I made a thing. Give an upvote. This is posted by Super Chives, god of quote-unquote healing and level-less miracles. They posted this as a picture, which is all good. Let me send this over. I will throw this in the chat. I will also put it in the forum. Ian, let me know if you do make a video. I'm happy to check it out and spread the word on it. Always happy to help out folks, friends of the channel. This is Sant Eshar, Holy Wound. Let's see, we've got, I'm thinking we're supposed to read these columns left to right. There once was a healer who wept that they might not spare the world from its many wounds and pain. Try as they might, they could not shoulder the pain of so many in a way that mattered. That was until a beggar, their face ruined with sores and cuts, asked for their help. The healer worked fervently, crying out and demanding that the wounds not mar someone so pitiful as the beggar, that they would suffer in their stead. At this declaration, the healer's face split and sores began to boil across their skin. But as the wounds opened upon their face, they closed and mended upon the beggar. All who gazed upon the act and saw the blood seep from the healer's ecstatic face bowed in reverence. Thus the miracle of the grievous wound was witnessed, and Sant Eshar was born into this world, or into the world. Cool. I'm down with that. We've got the weeping clerics. Those who observe the holy wound carry charms or pendants of a peaceful face riddled in open wounds, a motif of their god. The religious leaders, known as weeping clerics, sometimes lead congregations preaching the need to aid the sick and wounded while also using their skills as healers to assist at infirmaries, almshouses, and barbers. Many buildings to Sant Eshar double as medical wards, always tended by weeping clerics who bear countless wounds in white linen robes stained with humors. Initiation. To join the ranks of the weeping clerics, you must first assist at one of their medical wards for at least a season. Afterwards, you may petition a weeping cleric to take you on as an apprentice. The apprenticeship only lasts a month, but is grueling. Everything from amputations to palliative care will be covered and practiced. At the end of the month, if the weeping clerics deem you worthy, they will baptize you in a pool of saline, anoint you with the 4 humors, cut a wound across your body, and gift you a set of pristine linen robes. Good stuff there. We have a daily invocation. Do not harm needlessly. Never end a life early unless it would cause undue harm. Take wounds upon yourself before allowing others to take them. Provide healing whenever asked. Next, we have an initial miracle, the grievous wound. You may transfer a wound from another unto yourself. You touch another individual and transfer any number of hit points or vitality from yourself to the wounded. As the wounds disappear from the target of this miracle, they appear on yourself and must be healed like any other. So you have I guess the thing in here with this miracle is there's no mechanics, so I'm presuming you don't need to make any rolls or do anything. You can, it would seem, be able to transfer as many or as few hit points as you want to that person you're healing. Of course, you could only transfer at max. I suppose if you wanted to, you could kill yourself with it and just say, "Oh, take it all," and then I'll take all the wounds and die. So you're limited by how many hit points you have, which is it's sort of nice in the sense that it's kind of a soft level cap. Because if you only have 4 hit points or whatever hit points at level 1, then you're limited to how many hit points you can possibly heal. You get a level, you get some more hit points, then you sort of slowly get more abilities to take on these wounds. We have rites. Trail of the defiled humors. You must willingly infect yourself with a dangerous and possibly deadly ailment. Once infected, you must quarantine yourself and make certain that you do not spread the disease, battling the ailment for however long it takes to purge it from your body. Once the ailment has passed, and so long as you did not infect anyone else, the rite is completed. So I'm not sure if this is to say that if you take this, I think it's trail where they mean trial, and there's a typo here. And now after that trial, or after this description, there's a miracle. I'm guessing maybe that the miracle, you have to complete this trial to get access to this miracle. The miracle is called the Coffer Pestilent. You may transfer an ailment from another to yourself. You touch another individual and remove a single supernatural, magical, or natural ailment from them and transfer it to yourself. Once transferred, you take on any outwardly physical manifestations of the ailment, but experience none of the symptoms or downsides. However, you are still a vector for diseases and must cure it normally to stop it from being spread. There's no limit to the amount of ailments you can hold in this fashion. Wow, so that's kind of powerful, but you can also become a vector for a whole bunch of diseases. I suppose it'd be really great to have a paladin or somebody, hey, I'll take on the sickness and then you can try to cure it. Now Nothing says, I like the idea of a healing cleric having unhealed wounds on them as flavor. Yeah, I mean, I think, though, I would like if they're a little bit more than flavor, if this is kind of the class. I'm reading this, and I feel like this is kind of what I really want out of I don't know, I always like the term prestige class as something that, hey, you're a normal cleric, and this is something you could try to undergo at some level, say at level, and maybe there's no level cap to when you can do this, but hey, there is a sect, the sect of Saint Ashar, and you as a normal cleric, or even as somebody else, can then pursue this and sort of branch off from whatever your normal class is, take on this prestige class of becoming a weeping cleric. Because I'm looking at this, and there's nothing that says you have to have clerical powers to do this. You simply undergo these initiations, you do everything, and you might be able to gain this. And maybe I would even add some kind of mechanic of, hey, anybody can try and just let them do it, or do you want to have them roll something? It would be interesting to play around with that. These different concepts with someone who takes this on as their class, or like I said, as some kind of prestige class. Something that I always think of prestige classes, or what I want them to be, is things that really are these world influences. If you have these global archetypes, your fighter, your thief, your magic user, your whatever, then these are where you can bring in a lot of your worldly things and say, hey, you can still be a fighter, but you can also join this. And by joining that, we have 2, 3, 4 levels, whatever, that you can go through, have these things that you have to do, like the initiations you have to take part of in the world. It's not just, I leveled up and now I'm this. It's like, no, you have to qualify, or you have to find them, or you have to undergo initiation. But then it gives you some of this other paths that you can take. We have some more box text called favor. Save someone from the brink of death. Work at any almshouse, infirmary, etc. for a season. Cure a particularly virulent disease in yourself or another. Bear a terrible pain in someone's stead. There's a lot of these seasonal things, which I like because I really want to do more. And I think that not enough systems or games, do more. Actually, it was bigger when we were just looking at it normal. Do enough with seasonality of things. In other words, people just kind of they adventure all the time, right? Just adventure. I kind of like, and I know the One Ring and other things have had similar mechanisms, basically slowing things down, saying, look, you're not adventuring just 365. You're going to have breaks. I think it has that great kind of winter break. Oh, you're going to hit Yule, and during Yule, you're going to get to do some stuff, and you get this kind of winter downtime. And I really like that. I always think in my game of like, okay, you have kind of spring where you can sort of get some things done. Maybe in the fall a little bit, but you have to work around the farming cycles because a lot of these people that are mercenaries, they're not really full-time mercenaries. They're really folks that have done their planting, and they have maybe either siblings or kids or their wives or whatever that can handle taking over and just kind of monitoring it while it's germinating, so they can try to earn some extra money doing something else. But then come winter, or comes rather the fall or harvest time, they're going to have to get back home to harvest. And then once you get into winter, just all your paths close off, where you don't have snow plows. Everything's going to freeze. Mountain passes are going to close. Roads are going to become, to a large degree, impassable, or at least very difficult to pass. So you have this winter season in which you're going to have to kind of hang around. And not only that, but it puts real emphasis on, well, what am I doing with all this money I'm earning? Well, if you have to last all winter and you're not going to be able to do much, but maybe train. That's where you can do your training. That's where you can do things like, okay, I want to learn a bunch of new spells or try to figure them out, or I want to do crafting if you've got crafting in your game. Well, you have this couple of months where now you better be banking money, particularly in that spring, summer, into the fall, because once you get late fall, winter from that, whenever you want to draw that line and say, here's just where I'm getting too cold to whatever, November to March or April, you have those months where you're going to be kind of stuck wherever you are to a large degree, and you're going to be living off of your whatever you've earned. So you need to bank some money, because you're going to have to live off that money during the downtime. And this is something that you could easily factor in there. Okay, I want to become a Saint Ashar Holy Wound. I have that. Okay, I have to do this stuff for a season. I'll probably do that in the winter, and that way I can have my campaigning time in the summer, and that kind of thing. And then in the winter, I'll do that. But that means that during those other times, I got to find someone to do this, and then I have to get over there and then be there at that moment to say, okay, now I'm going to take the winter to hang out with you and do those stuff. Okay, so we went through favors. We have another right here. Stations of the infinite burden. To give yourself holy is divine. You must make a pilgrimage to the shrine of the first miracle, where Saint Ashar was born as a god. Countless folk from across the world gather at this shrine, begging the holy wound to alleviate their terrible pains and ailments. You must tend to them, giving your life over and over to the wounds of battle, trauma, and circumstance. Only when you have been utterly spent and you can give absolutely no more is the rite complete. And the miracle, again, it's not clear. It seems like just from the way these are laid out that you do this thing, this trial, or you undertake the stations of the infinite burden, and then you are rewarded with the miracle afterwards. That would seem to be the case, but it's not completely clear. But it seems that's probably what they mean. The miracle from the stations is ecstasy of the wound. You double your hit points for a time. Once invoked, you gain additional hit points equal to your current maximum from 1 hour per hit die. These hit points disappear after the miracle expires, along with any damage that they took. Well, I mean, that's really interesting, because if you have undergone this trial, or you've taken this rite, and you have this, that means you could do the miracle of ecstasy of the wound, double your hit points, then do the miracle of the grievous wound, take a whole bunch of hit points off, and then any damage that they took disappears. I presume that when you're taking grievous wounds, that these temporary hit points essentially would get consumed first, so you could then just draw off that, which is certainly a nice way to double your healing power at any level after you've undergone this rite. Now we have the next rite is Will of the First Witness. We are told to give pain as a sin. Why are such horrid wounds divine? You must seek out the mausoleum of Almas, the first to receive the miracle of Santa Shar and witness their ascension to godhood. It is taboo to speak of, and most weeping clerics will deny its existence. You will find it hidden away in a forgotten cellar or catacombs tended to by a quiet trio of aged clerics. They will tell you the story as it was told to them of how Almas wished all their wounds to be tended and how they claimed Saint Ashar had no right to bear their own pain without their consent. Once you hear the truth and leave the mausoleum, the rite is complete. I kind of feel like I wish they had that more, not necessarily the tale, but leave the more circumstances of the location a secret, because that's a great adventure hook. You got to find it. You don't know where it is, but once you get there, this is maybe what they will tell you. Or even, and almost like I wish this was more GM-facing information as opposed to I could read this and get the story, because it's an interesting twist that there might be, hey, this person they wanted help, but they didn't want, they're saying that this Santa Shard didn't have the right to just take this stuff. Brian Smith says, is this a cleric subclass for a specific system, but open wounds skeeve me out? I think it's meant to be a little bit skeevy. I mean, this is entirely, so Brian Smith, it seems to be, and I'll look down in the comments in a minute to see if they posted this as an image. That's really the first thing that we get. So I don't know, but we've seen nothing mechanically. They're just calling it, they're just calling it God of Healing and levelless miracles. It is very intriguing, and I think it would, like I said, I think it would fit in perfectly with some kind of prestige class, which anybody could undergo and just spend experience points to translate into if they wanted to. We have, if you go through this Will of the First Witness, then we unlock the miracle, the Unwitting Martyr. You transfer your many wounds and ailments to another. When invoked, you touch another being and transfer any wounds, ailments, or curses you currently bear onto them. They are permitted a save to avoid the transference, failure causing them to take damage, become infected, or any number of ills that you pass on to them. My goodness, that is pretty darn powerful. I really think that in this Will of the First Witness, I think if they were to convert this into a class, I would say you have to be at a certain level of this to undertake this, essentially a quest, and then it would be quite difficult, because being able to take a bunch of wounds, transfer it onto somebody else, granted it's on a failed save, but you could take on all kinds of curses and anything else and then just slap it on somebody, because if you wanted to be a jerk, find some level 1, level 0 nobody and do that, probably they're going to fail their save. They just get a whole bunch of stuff. Could be a little bit rough. All right, well, and this looks like it's got page numbers, so is this taken from a book? Seems like it must be. Well, let's see what we have below. Aha, it's taken from an itch. So Super Chives, who is the poster of this, I did, says basically a little more here, and I'll click on that, open it in a new tab, and I'll go there in a second. Basically, I'm putting together a resource that changes the cleric / priest / warlock, etc. into something a bit more built on action. All right, so here we go. So the overall product is called As the Gods Demand. As the Gods Demand. There we go. Let's see, let me also paste this here, because I will plug all this in the forums as soon as this is over to keep hopefully a good list of what we've covered. As the Gods Demand. And what do the gods demand? These hands are called to action as the gods demand. These hands offer supplication as the gods demand. These hands are imbued with fervor as the gods demand. These hands shall not waver, as the gods demand. Man is a deconstruction of divine power and deities for use in the world's most popular role-playing game. Rather than treat gods and their something a player can earn through leveling up, as the gods demand, present divine power as something that can be wielded and earned by anyone, provided they take the appropriate steps and sacrifices. Walking the path of a cleric or zealot now requires action and risks consequence, allowing players to make interesting choices if they wish to seek greater power. The many gods within the Zine offer all manner of powers and boons if the faithful is willing to undertake tasks to earn their favor. As the gods demand provides player rules for a levelless divine magic system, a series of gods for both GM and player to explore, accessory rules on death, divine inspired encounters, and becoming a deity yourself. The contents in this design was designed to mostly system neutral, while much of it operates with a 20-sided dice in mind that can be easily adapted to fit most systems. As part of Zine Month 2022, I'll add this to my RPG collection so I can... Brian Smith says Bart Simpson hair. Yeah, the guy on the cover definitely has Bart Simpson-esque hair. No Nothing says the effect of that last miracle is you are healed to max HPs and you cause damage equal to the amount healed and transfer various effects. That is a very powerful attack. Yes, it is. And given that it seems like there's no limit, if they make their save, it's just, okay, touch them again, touch them again, touch them again. I mean, chances are in a situation outside of combat, I mean, I guess you would just say that you're rolling initiative because that would definitely be an aggressive action. But yeah, that's pretty powerful. Ovaltine Patrol. Hey, Ovaltine Patrol says, some later 3rd edition D&D materials had systems for undergoing trials or seeking out special sites to get temporary limited use power. I was just reminded. Okay. I don't remember it 3E, but my recollections of 3E are not that strong. So I happily take your word for it. I think I would combine them. I mean, I keep going to that prestige class, but I really feel like something like that. Because, one, I think this idea that experience has to be only from certain things. And you can easily quantify some of the stuff in experience. Hey, you need to... Let me go back to the thing. Okay, so I'm going to close this up. Let me go back to some of this. You could reframe this initiation, the apprenticeship, saying, okay, once you decide... So, for example, let's say you want to get initiated. You have to go talk to a weeping cleric. Fine. Now, we could really just reframe a little bit what you're doing to be initiated. Instead of saying, okay, you have to sit and be statically at this clinic or wherever they're working and just work for a month, which is fine, but it's going to end up being, in a sense, downtime. You are essentially telling this, if your character's doing that, you're going to spend a season aiding this weeping cleric. Okay, what are you doing? You're not going to role play all that out, even though it's really interesting. Really what you're doing is saying, okay, I'm going to spend this month, whatever it is, or a couple of months, and then at the end of it, we'll just say, hey, you did it. Or maybe we'll make a roll. I don't know, right? I understand this idea of, well, you're doing a consequence and everything, but all you're really investing is time. And if it's downtime and everyone else is just doing their downtime stuff, then it's not really much of an investment unless it's just opportunity loss. Well, I could have spent my downtime learning this other thing or doing this other thing, and instead I spent my downtime with the weeping clerics. So is there an opportunity cost there? Maybe, but most games don't really heavily get into that. Oh, well, you missed your chance and it's never going to be around again kind of thing. So it's just, well, I'm doing downtime and at the end, hey, I've done it. And any consequence is really just an RP thing of, oh, you haven't seen the wounds that I've seen, or, oh gosh, what I had to do when I was sawing off limbs was terrible. But there's no other real consequence than that. Whereas I think you could just make tweaks. Okay, I've gone and I've talked to this weeping cleric and I say to the weeping cleric, I want to join you. The weeping cleric gives me some kind of missive. What do I have to do? I have to do maybe I have to go out and, just as part of my mission out in the world, do the kinds of things similar to what they're talking about. Okay, I need to aid the wounded. I need to do all this stuff. Maybe I need to go learn. So what I can do as a GM with that is say, okay, so now, because you've taken this, you've started this initiation, during your initiation, you will no longer be getting experience from getting loot and whatever pittance you would get from killing creatures. You are going to solely get experience by doing things first aid, barber surgeon type stuff, and maybe I would have some roles and things what they do, and that's how you're going to earn experience during the initiation. And by the way, here's the amount of experience you need when you'll be able to go back and say, I've done it. So then it's up to you as a player to say, okay, how am I going to make this happen? I obviously can do this by just helping out my teammates on our adventures, which means the whole game doesn't have to come to a halt when I decide I want to become a Weeping Cleric. I can go out in the world and I can do this. I can help my teammates. We can, as our adventuring group is off adventuring, maybe I'll say to the party, hey, this war is happening over there. Let's go there because I want to help them. It might change some of the goals we undertake because now I have this other angle I'm trying to do. Or it might say, you know what, instead of delving further in this dungeon, which is fine, but it's not going to give me these occasions, let's take part in these other things. So I can keep this concept, what they're doing, but I can really bring it into the world and let it affect everything that's happening and affect the choices that the party makes and maybe the decisions they do and maybe the adventures they go on and all these other things that can be kind of living in the campaign and make it more than just, okay, you go and you spend downtime. No, now you're going to earn experience doing these things. And maybe the party will have to figure out if is this worth it or is this not worth it or how can we, they'll have to maybe have to do some negotiations, but that's fine because it's all about picking these things that we want to do. When you get to that will of the first witness, which unlocks that last powerful miracle, to me, that's definitely a quest. Right? So that's something you go, okay, this is something you're going to do. And then you're going to have to get your party involved or you're going to have to go do it on your own. But that's not just, okay, you're going to spend more downtimes. Like, no, you're going to have to actively go out and do that. And then once you get some of these rights and things, maybe you say, hey, once you become initiated, then maybe you get this other vector of experience that maybe that pittance you would get, that the kind of experience you would get from killing monsters, we're kind of, you could probably use that as a guide and say, now we're going to flip that around. You're going to get that experience, but when you save people. So when you come across a creature and you able to relieve them using whatever miracles or just physical tools, that's the experience you'll get. And we can actually probably use that during the initiation. Say, okay, we know what kind of you get when you're killing a certain amount of HD of creature, how that works. You're going to have that same chart, but it's inverted. So now when you save this many people, you're going to get this much. And however much experience it's going to take from 0 to level 1, then you can go back and do that. So I appreciate what they're doing. I'm not sure I see so much of the consequences outside the RP, but I think you could easily tweak this and get some of that in there. And as I'm talking, there comes our first spamster. But you were blocked now. Let's see. Brian Smith says, ooh, I'd like to see that quest character advancement is cool. Brian Smith also says, could apply a flaw as well if the downtime roll went poorly or it wasn't completed in time. Take the place of opportunity cost. And then nothing adds. After every time a PC is hit, the cleric is like, I think we should amputate that arm. I need the experience points. I mean, yeah, I would definitely want to qualify what you're getting experience points for, but I think you could definitely make it work. And that way it could be more active. Otherwise, it's just down. I mean, yeah, you could add some rolls and say, oh, you did that and you didn't do enough. But why not make it something active? And I really like the idea of players starting to think about for their characters what they want to be in the world and having to make that stuff happen in the world. Not just, oh, I want to be a paladin, so I'm going to take a level in paladin, or I'm just going to call myself a paladin or whatever. It's like, no, you want to be a knight, maybe. I'm just going to be a knight. Well, okay, well, what does it mean to be a knight? Well, first, someone has to knight you, so you might have to do some stuff. And then you think about, well, how do I do that? Normally, you just think in RP senses, well, you got to do something for a lord or whatever, right? But you could mechanize it. You could say, listen, you got to go, you do have to go figure out how to get an audience with a lord or figure out a way to get into a lord's good graces. And then once you become a squire, then you have to do certain things. And then you become a knight errant. And then you got to do more things. And all these things could change what that character gets experience for. So now as a knight errant, it's not just about killing monsters, or maybe you get more for killing monsters, but it has to be in almost a ritualistic way. If we're dealing with kind of the romantic Arthurian knights, this is, you need to challenge things and do single combat and uphold honor and that stuff. And if you do those things, then you'll get this experience, but only that experience is going to apply for you. You're no longer right now about loot. At least while you're going through this nightly process, you're supposed to be kind of eschewing loot. Just as these clerics don't care about earthly wealth. There's nothing in here that says they care a whit about having money. So you're not going to get experience for money right now. You're going to experience for doing these things that are nightly And when you get that experience, then you can go up levels. The rest of your party, yeah, they can loot and everything all they want. But for you right now, you're on this path, which, as I'm thinking, seems really cool. And I will definitely have to do something with it because I think it's a fascinating idea. I've talked about in the past about how we can take experience points and just do more with them than I think we do. But this is really fascinating to think about having these. I'm going to keep using the term prestige class because I don't have something else, but these really fiction-driven classes that will change the kind of experience points and what you get for them to do, which can really help mechanize in a player-facing way what you need to do. It's not just, you got to do something. It's like, no, I, as a player, I know, okay, now I know what I need to do. I can look at the experts and say, okay, I can go as a Weeping Cleric Initiate. I can see what do I need to do. So let me find the places in the world or things to get involved with to get me closer to that, or I can do something else, or I can decide, you know what, I'm going to go back and I don't care enough and it's too difficult. I don't want to do it. And you have the freedom to make all those choices. Let's see. Brian Smith says, maybe an easy hook in a 5e would be a condition like initiated or something like that. Could have a bunch of effects based on different societies, cults, etc. Yeah, I don't know if we need a condition. I suppose in 5e, yeah, they have lots of condition things. But I just think, hey, once you decide you get initiated, whatever that looks at, in this case, it's some Weeping Cleric. You go through some ritual that's before the baptismal ritual. Maybe there's some other ritual. And then you're kind of on that path and you accept it. And then it has a spiritual significance. Okay, I've accepted that. And now suddenly things have changed for me with you could see a nightly kind of ritual or even just to become a squire or something that would have a certain, you've taken on this responsibility, you've made an oath, right? If you want to bring in oaths and things, which I always love of having these things that oaths and I've given my word, like really you're undertaking this kind of oath and that has a power and then we can hook into that power both in the fiction but then also mechanically. So why you have that oath and breaking an oath is a big deal. These are some things. The consequence of that oath is now your experience path is different than your teammates, the rest of your party who did not take that oath. But there's some benefits that if you make it through this, here you're getting these miracles, you're getting these rights, you're getting these abilities as a knight that you would not have gotten otherwise, but you are sacrificing potentially a lot to do that. No, nothing says it is much better to try and incorporate the things you have to do into the adventure. Yes. That's why I'm not, I mean, downtime is great for a lot of stuff, but this kind of thing, I feel like, let's figure out a way to get it into the living world and not just because, you know, again, we're going to usually get this downtime, we're just going to hand wave it away. Okay, a month has passed. Everyone's done their downtime, make a roll or not make a roll. It's okay satisfying for some things when we acknowledge as a table that, yeah, we just kind of want to get this done and just see how efficient we are. But there are other things that I feel like are more important than that. And I think something like this feels like it's more important than just hand waving away the commitment and just say a month has passed. Brian Smith says, it does seem like a fundamental and powerful design choice to personalize where the XP comes from for each character. Cool stuff. Yes. Probably can be overdone and it does add some extra accounting. GM's going to have to be aware of it. The player's going to have to be aware of it. You know, you're handing out XP. You can say, oh, it's this much XP. Oh, except for you, Bob. Bob, you know, everyone else got 5,000 XP because of all this gold, but your goal was to challenge powerful monsters in single combat, and you only did that once, so you get, 200 XP. But that's the choice, and that's kind of the cool thing, that you get that you make your choices and you have real consequences. Hopefully, it's worth it for you on the other side. I don't think that necessarily means that these classes got to be super powerful, because some of it is just it's cool. It means something. Like if I feel like I've won all this stuff and I became a knight, like that means something to me. I did that. Like, no, I went out of my way. Like this is what I did to become a knight. And it doesn't have to be, well, now knights got to be just crazy powerful because everything I gave up. No, I think it's like, it's got to be worth it to you. I mean, it should be interesting at least. But I don't think this means that they have to be super powerful, but just got to be intriguing, got to be worthwhile in some way. All right, that was the God of Healing, Leveless Miracles, and then also As God's Demand, which was cool. Let's head back out. Bob Mostel says, I object. Your objection is noted, Bob Mostel. Okay, what else have we got here? Ruling. Okay, on Downtimes and Domains by Courtney Campbell is on sale. Let's see. Forgotten Realms, the old school way. I don't play Forgotten Realms, so no. Though I did have on by happen chance had that chat with Ed Greenwood. We were actually looking at that Fate of the Norns, but maybe I can get him on because I believe, if I don't have it wrong, he created the Forgotten Realms back in the day. That was his homebrew originally. He did accept my friend request, so maybe I can hit him up at some point, and he can come on and talk about old school Forgotten Realms, which I think would be really fascinating. I mean, look, I could talk to him about all kinds of fascinating stuff. Kind of don't even know where to begin. That's something for down the line. Let's see. Made a free RPG art generator. Well, I mean, I got to take a look at that one. Posted by Lopaki. Click, clack, free art for whatever project you have. By yours truly, lovely toy. Generate some emotional art for your game or a bad tattoo idea. As a thank you for the tabletop RPG community. Made a tool that generates free public domain art. Use it whenever you want. It's on Perchance. With a note, if you use this to produce NFTs, I will personally piss on your grave. There you go. All right, this is going to be, ooh, look at that. We're already getting good stuff. All right, what is this called? Free RPG Art Maker. There we go. Let me just paste it into my other notes here. I wish there was a way to get a text dump of the chat before I leave. Something just so I could see it, because I would paste stuff in there. People post stuff. I want to look it back up or get a note, and I have to watch the whole stream over again. And kind of rather not do that. So we got some kind of face. Well, that's a creepy thing. It's got antlers, sort of gremlin-esque. It's got something on its hands. It's a chain. It's maybe a chain. A collar what looks like a chain, and then I can't tell if it's a tail or a cloak. And a cool looking hammer with some spikes coming out of the sides. I'm down with these. So what do I do? Just let's read the tutorial. Perchance is all about lists. You simply create lists of different things and reference the list from one another. Okay, so I think that's kind of like Abulafia. Where's the art one? Do I just supposed to let me go back? Oh no, it came into a different thing. Okay, so here we go. Back here. Now nothing says, this is amazing. I have no idea what to do with it. Oh, that's a Glog Gretchling. Okay, I seem familiar. Oh, Terrence says just click a pic to change it. Okay, well I really like the hammer. Let's click on the. Oh, is it all different Gretchlings? Okay, so this is like a whoa. Went too far. Like that's like a Gretchling creator. I guess that one does faces and this does weapons. Goodbye, Mjolnir. I liked you. Oh, look at that. Oh, we're back. Similar, not quite the same. Ooh. This one I would call the I don't know, what would that be? Sort of the death pineapple. I'm not sure where you're supposed to grip this particular hammer from, but it could be cool for some undersea creatures or Kuatoa or someone. I guess it does have sort of a handle down at the end, but looks like it's made of. I know rays don't really have bones. They have that cartilage stuff because they're related to sharks, I believe. But and we got the pineapple one thing, and then we got the sword with the same hilt. Slightly different hammer. Oh, very cool. Let's see some of these faces here. Oh, nice. It's like a sheep wizard. A rock star. This is like if this one looks like, you know, if Bigfoot had been discovered in the 70s and went on to front a funk band. On the what to do with it, Bob Mossel said the Brobarian. Exactly. I mean, these are very rough sketches. You could color them in. You could do something, combine them. I like the style of them. They have that old school, very naive style, like stuff you'd find in the 3 Brown books. Unfortunately, we just have faces and not full bodies. Maybe that'll come later. Cool, cool, cool. Close all those windows. I did bookmark it already. All right. Perchance you have a bunch of tools. I know I've been here before for something else. So it's probably worth bookmarking the home page. We'll get some background image plugins, image layer combiner. Seems like there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. What's the art generator? Is that the same thing? Oh, that's to generate sort of a prompt, an art prompt. Okay, cool. Go to Perchance, check it out. I upvoted it. Let's go back. Brian Smith says, I think if you never showed these but attempted to describe them to the players, they would be entertained for hours. I definitely agree. Okay, where were we? That was that one. This might be interesting. It seems like this will be more of a discussion. It's got a bunch of comments. Posted by Oiloil. Or would that be Oiloil? Oiloil, like Boo Earns, but Oiloil. Clearly, this has caused a lot of discussion, so let's take part. Here's what Oiloil said. Some of my feelings for OSR rule sets, just looking for some feedback or conversation. Oh, this looks like you definitely got some feedback or conversation. Basic expert, beautiful emergent gameplay, so many annoying rules. Labyrinth Lord, ugly BX, old school essentials, pretty BX. BECME/Rules Cyclopedia, BX on steroids, way too much. Swords and Wizardry complete, AD&D reined in. Lamentations of the Flame Princess, cool ideas. White hack, what is this? Black hack, fun but glitchy. Knave, beer and pretzels. Dungeon Crawl Classic, much fun, too many random roll tables, can't find a D30. Black pudding, BX made with love. Zweihander, Grimdark, not for RPG beginners. Delving deeper, OD&D but unnecessarily complicated. Morkborg, the feels, the theme, so pretty. And finally, S&W Whitebox/Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game. Give me a set of dice and let me be free. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of these I don't know. I've heard of Black Pudding. I have not read Black Pudding. Beautiful. I mean, BX, that's kind of my jam. So I'll just go there first. So many annoying rules. I'm wondering if someone asked. I don't know. What are these so many annoying rules in BX? There aren't that many rules. So I'm not sure what would be so annoying. I do kind of agree on the BECME Rules Encyclopedia. It is BX on steroids. I think they try to extend it a whole bunch. It does have, I wouldn't say way too much, because I feel like it's pretty modular. Or at least the way I always thought about it is here are a bunch of extra modular modules you can add on top of your sort of vanilla BX experience if you want. I think if you jammed it all in, it might be too much for me. Of course, what's too much for me is not enough for some. So there that is. Swords and Wizardry complete, AD&D reined in, I guess. Lamentation of the Flame Princess, cool ideas. Yeah, but I mean, if you found that the BX had so many annoying rules, well, I mean, Lamentations doesn't have less rules. I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree on Dungeon Crawl Classics that it's got a lot of random roll tables, though I know it's got Purple Sorcerer and some other digital tools that can maybe help with the too many random rolls. Not sure. I don't know what's unnecessarily complicated about delving deeper. I'm not sure, because I feel like delving deeper is a really cleaned up, clarified OD&D. So I don't know what they would consider unnecessarily complicated about that. Darren says, got a hot take buffet there. Yeah, it's definitely a bunch of hot takes. There's got a lot of comments, so it definitely got a lot of people talking. Justicar7 coming in. My thoughts are the complete opposite of yours when it comes to BX and Mork Borg. It is nice to see Black Pudding mentioned. The Black Pudding OSR playbook is a nice little set of rules that nobody ever seems to mention. I'll give you a thumbs up for that. Tim Bannock says, delving deeper is unnecessarily complicated? Or OD&D is, and delving deeper just doesn't do anything to mitigate that? I love delving for how it covers OD&D in such a well-organized package, and even covers a couple of elements that OSE doesn't quite do as comprehensively or elegantly, because BX made them more complicated, evasion and pursuit in the wilderness being one. But yeah, ultimately, it's still OD&D with its intricacies. The worst one, in my honest opinion, is how fighter, multiple attacks based on HD, and enemies targeting fighters who are beyond a few levels is all automatically this or that. It's unnecessarily complex in play at the table. Yeah, I mean, you could say OD&D is overly complicated, but I could say that it's, if you were going to say that, in your opinion, it wasn't, I don't know how you could say delving deeper is. Either they both are to me or they both aren't, because delving deeper isn't adding on top of it. It's just trying to make it clear. I mean, they've added content. I don't think they've added some kind of unnecessary stuff on top of it. So Oiloil did respond saying, when I think complicated, I mean the weird plus on HD without a reason. Going to 12th level, stuff like that. Haven't read their rules in entirety, but they seem scattered. There are good ideas in there, like enchanting items. Is there a section you particularly like? And then Tim Bannock replies, I wouldn't say there really is just one. To me, it's just makes OD&D so much easier to play from one source of rules. If you think delving is scattered, try running from the original books. Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's kind of ultimately what it is. It seems like this person hasn't really read OD&D and then is just looking at delving deeper and saying, wow, some of this stuff seems a little bit odd, but or whatever. But it's like, yes, it might be, but it's trying to give you OD&D, and that essentially is what OD&D gives you. So, what do you know, if you're trying not to change it, you're not trying to make a whole new game, you're trying to say, look, I just want to give you a kind of a cleaned up, streamlined OD&D, but I'm not trying to do, I want it to be basically OD&D, then some of those things from OD&D are going to be there. Those intricacies, those oddities, just those things that make OD&D are going to be there. Elfbait says, hey, Elfbait says, Beckme really works, as you mentioned, modular or progressive. It is written with a lot of stuff you can work up to and add as you find yourself needing new experiences in your games. Right, and I would agree with that. And if you're going by what it gave you in the original books, you had that progression. You could buy box set, and you would get some different things at each time. So if you start off with basic, and basic expert is the same. You don't get your hex crawling rules until you get to expert, because they figure the first few levels you're not really going to be doing that. You're going to be kind of hanging out in one spot. So why give you those rules when you or the GM don't need them yet? Expert, then you can go to companion, and so on and so forth. When you get to the rules cyclopedia, yeah, that makes it seem more, here's a whole bunch of stuff, blam, all at once. And they don't organize it in terms of when you might want this in your game. So yeah, agreed and agreed. Update says you can then retrofit the more advanced rules into subsequent campaigns. Yep, you can do that too. Now, nothing says BX. So many annoying rules. Seems like the author must be defining one of those words in a different way than I do. Could be many, annoying, or rules. And then Dungeon Master Masterclass says, haha, I vote it's many. Haha. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's one of those things where you kind of want to get someone's frame of reference, right? Okay, so what is your game that you are comparing all these other games to? Because you might say, compared to, I don't know, Knave, maybe you'd say, oh, BX has a lot of rules. I mean, I don't even know if Knave's even a good one to compare it to. I'm not even sure what I'll compare it to. Like, what is your baseline? If you're coming from AD&D first edition and someone, and that's been your jam, and that's your bread and butter, and that's where you cut your teeth, you go to BX, you're not going to say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of rules. You might be thinking, not enough rules. Or maybe if you came from Warhammer, you might be thinking, boy, I'm missing some rules here, missing some, or your Harn or something. Or are you coming from, again, I don't know what. So I'd like to know, is this person coming from 5th edition? Because from a 5th edition standpoint, does BX have more rules? no. It may have less clarity mechanically. I think it's certainly true because of because fifth edition has very upfront mechanics for everything, and all these all their combinations and mechanics is very much out there, and there isn't that in any of the old school games, really. So yeah, I don't know, but I think that's something that they probably missed. I mean, look, they were throwing up some stuff to talk about, right? And yeah, it is a hot take soup, and that's kind of what they're doing. But yeah, if they had said, "Here's where I started from," and then when I read through these, this is what I get. But it is kind of weird because, hey, Lamentations, great ideas. Okay, but if BX was so many annoying rules, how is Lamentations not annoying you with its many rules? Because it's essentially BX. It's right there. Like, yeah, maybe it cleaned up a thing or two, but it didn't really subtract a whole bunch. Terrence is pretty sure BX is the baseline. I mean, I think it's certainly my baseline. I don't know if it's this person's baseline is what I'm thinking, because I'm not sure that it is. I don't know. Maybe they started with like Mork Borg, which I still haven't read yet, and I need to get on my reading, especially now that folks were kind enough to send me a digital copy. But let's see. Yes, people are saying, "Hey, you got Swords and Wizardry wrong." Steer and X agrees, says all these thoughts are pretty spot on. If I were to add my own for basic fantasy role-playing game, lacking in style makes up for it in cool optional rules you can use in other BX systems. But if BX has so many annoying rules, why would you want to add more rules on top? I don't know. Thror 2 says, I don't understand BX being considered unplayable. Does anyone consider BX unplayable? Has anyone said that? It's unplayable? I know people have said that the white box, the 3 brown books, is kind of unplayable in its state. It's impossible for me to say, so I'm not going to comment, because I can't unknow all my D&D knowledge and then go back and read it and try to play it. Because you just read it, and knowing all the D&D stuff that came after, it's very easy to kind of, even if it's not correct, just fill in blank spaces with stuff that you pull in from other editions. I have no idea about how it stands if I were to take it all on its own. I suppose someone could be very studious and figure that out and not be biased in some way. I don't know. But let's see. Thor2 says, it's a very straightforward presentation of the rules and very simple gameplay experience. I know 10-year-olds who understand rules as written how to play. And then Oiloil says in response, I'll give that a thumbs up, and I'll give his response a thumbs up. It's not that I don't understand how to play, it's that it feels pretty bad and leads to bad gameplay. I don't know what they're talking about. Oh, well, maybe the thief, so I can see the thief. Examples, the thief, the different max levels for humans and demi-humans, the percentile dice, the treasure placement rules, the coin is weight, monsters, multiple attacks, the weird progression of attack bonus and saves, and many others. I have not seen anyone use the rules as written and not change either the math or the adjudication or the interpretation. But it's not terrible. I really love parts of it, but not unconditionally. I don't know. I mean, I've heard this said before. So I've heard this before. Okay, I get that the thief is flawed, and it is. I get it. All right, I see it. I have my. Let me see. I have my BX right here. My games tonight. I've got it right here, and the fact is that you go and you look for what things mean for the thief, and I've had I've done whole videos on the thief, and it's flawed because it really doesn't tell you how these are supposed to be adjudicated. And yes, when you're a thief at level 1 and your open locks is 15%, your find or remove traps is 10%, your pickpockets and move silently are both at 20%, and your hide in shadows at 10%, it feels like you're in for a bummer of a time. And I've mentioned how maybe some of those should be seen as being, or maybe all of them in some way should be seen in a way that gives you a little more latitude. But I will also say on the flip side, you're first level. How powerful are you supposed to be at first level? So maybe these are not where they would be. I don't know where I was if I was going to just redo all the percentages myself. What I would do. My normal thing is just be a little bit kinder and generous. Give the thieves some latitude before you start making them roll, because some of those things they don't have good chances on. So I get that part of it. the different max levels for humans and demi-humans, I've never run into that as a problem because so often you don't get there. And I think if your argument from just session 0 is, hey, wait a minute, this guy's only going to stop at 8th level. By the time you get to 8th level, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. I don't think I've come across anyone saying, well, I refuse to play this because my halfling thief is only going to be able to get to 8th level, or my dwarf fighter is only going to get to 6th level. It's like, if I get up to 6th level, then I'll retire them, and or maybe I'll feel differently, and I love this character, and I don't want to let him go, whatever. I haven't really found that be a big deal. Percentile dice, again, I've never seen anything be a big deal. Treasure placement rules, I mean, I use them. I'm sure there are technical articles written about the issues with that, but I really haven't had them. And if you're playing modules and things, that it's even less of an issue. Coin is weight. It's just the way it goes. It's just a way of doing encumbrance. I don't see that as some big thing. Monsters, multiple attacks. I don't know the problem of that. And this thing with the progression. So here, I guess I will say this. The internet has created or has enabled the creation, because here is someone who has, I don't know if this is all their thoughts. And I'm not trying to say that Oiloil is some kind of ignoramus who's just spouting stuff. But you read articles, you read stuff that will get into these super technical details, and then you get it in your brain that, oh yeah, this progression's weird. My players are playing BX. You know what? They've never stared twice at the progression. They could care less about the progression. Until I started getting on the internet and getting these things, never spent a blink of an eye looking at the progression to even think it was weird. I've never looked at any progression and studied it. Oh, look at that. Isn't that a weird progression? I really don't think in the real world you really care that much. But in the internet, when people have spent lots of time and they get really technical and they start delving in all the details, and suddenly they'll pull up all this stuff. Isn't it weird that it went up 2 and then only went up 1, then it goes up 0, then it went up 2 and then it went up 2 again, but now it's 0, 0 twice or whatever, or then it's 1, 1 twice. But in the real world scenarios, when you're getting down to play, back in the day, I certainly never cared. And I don't think that 99% of the people, if you just sat them down and say, here's the game, they don't care about it. I don't really think anybody cares. But I think if you just have this bubble of everyone who is developing this expertise on all these little details, suddenly all this stuff becomes, oh, isn't it a problem? No, it's really not, unless you want to stare at it. Stare at it long enough, you will never be able to unsee it. You have a TV. I was in someone's house one time, and they had a dead pixel, but they hadn't noticed it. And I don't know if it was me or somebody else pointed out the dead pixel. Hey, you got a dead pixel. And then suddenly like, what? And all you could see after that is the dead pixel. But if nobody had told you, you never even noticed it before. And I think a lot of this stuff, it's like we're creating these issues with the games that don't really exist. You guys, you tell me, like, if you ever, I've never looked at any game, gone and said, oh my gosh, like when I'm playing 5th edition Warhammer, I've never played Warhammer, but Call of Cthulhu, I never sat there trying to figure out, the progression. Is it, what algorithm is it using? Is it using it correctly? I don't care. I don't think anybody really cares about that stuff, but in the internet, in the sort of bubble, someone mentioned in the chat, theory crafting, it becomes a big deal. And plenty of people have used the rules as written. And when they say not change the interpretation is yours to make. It's not. What do you mean the interpretation? I don't understand. What does that mean? Because, and I feel like I've gone on a mini rant, but that's fine. That's my little mirror. And look, I'm not trying to say that BX isn't flawed and that you couldn't improve upon it or nothing. Of course not. But I think we've almost invented the problems that then we have to figure out how to solve. And when you read a bunch of these articles and you come back to it, and you're like, oh yeah, treasure placement's all out of whack. Monsters have multiple attacks. Like, okay, like who has a problem? That just makes them dangerous. When my players come up against a monster and it's got multiple attacks, their thing is not like, well, this is a flawed system. This system sucks. Monsters have multiple attacks. It's like, oh gosh. Oh no. Bite, claw. Uh-oh. Better get our defense on. I don't know. I see it. I see it in other places, and I don't even try to convince people, because if you want to, again, like the dead pixel, if you see it and now you can't unsee it, and it's a massive hurdle for you, hey, it is what it is, and fix it if you need to. But it's funny that this then becomes these issues that, the game's unplayable, or even if you don't go that far, oh, it's so flawed. Like, these flaws are so small. So small. Plenty of people, I could go and I could take BX now, or OSE or whatever, and I could take it over there and play. And I guarantee you, I could go into a game store, and I could even get some people who've been playing games and for a long time getting to play this, and they're not going to see those flaws. Those flaws are not going to enter into anything at all. Sure, if they wanted to go study the books under a electron microscope, they might find them. Guarantee you, day to day, just playing on a practical level, they're not there. They're just there. I mean, or they are there. They're not so visible that it makes the game anything near unplayable. That is the end of my rant. Let me see what's going on in the chat, 'cause I feel like I've missed a lot. Brian Smith says, we need to truly know Oiloil to understand Oiloil. That's probably true. Elfbait says, I learned BX at 8 years old. Yeah, I was about the same age when I first got into it, somewhere like that. Terrence says, rules are bad and annoying, but also rules are good and helpful. Toolbox. Yes, it's hard to say. I wouldn't call BX overly complex, though. I do think that, and I've said this before, right? One of the things that I as much as I have fun with using the different dice for different things, the extent that for someone new to everything, it's easier just to say roll a d20 than to say, oh, now you're using percentile, now you're using X and 6, now you're using a d20, now you're using something else. I will admit that is simpler. But yeah, I mean, as an 8-year-old, did I not just be like, ooh, different dice? Oh, cool. You get that handful of colored dice. You're like, wow, like I get to use this and I get to use that. Yeah, these things were not really, some of these things are just, they're not really barriers until you make them barriers. You know, again, it's that dead pixel thing. You know, some people, you see a flaw or you see an imperfection and then you can't get past it. Other people are like, yeah, you got it. Like it's, yes, this porcelain dish or this cup has a small crack or it has a chip. Either I'm okay with that or like I just am focusing in on it and it's just going to kill me until I get a new cup or I fix it. Brian Smith says, kind of a hot mess of a convo when you have multiple people using multiple criteria to evaluate multiple complex game systems. That's one way of putting it. Dave Mills says, these can all be adjusted by situational modifiers like, yeah, sure. I mean, all this stuff can be modified, but I think this person's looking at it presumably just like, no, rules is raw. And if it's something that you even, I mean, and I get that too, because I think it's a fair cop that you can't defend a flawed system by saying, well, you could fix it. It's like, yeah, you could fix it, but I got to fix it. So ideally, we don't want to have to fix anything. So I get it. I'm not even arguing that there aren't necessarily flaws that you could say, oh, yeah, the thief is flawed or this is flawed or that's flawed. Yeah, these are all, I'm not even arguing that. I guess what I'm saying is that other than the thief, which to me is the one that needs some addressing, situational only in that if no one's picking a thief, they don't have to address it. But the thief is the one I'd want to address. The other ones I feel like are small enough flaws that I think you get by 99% of the time by looking at it again until people start to theory craft and pick it apart, and then it becomes apparent that they haven't used some mathematically correct formula. They're kind of guessing or they're guesstimating or they're just sort of, hey, yeah, this sounds good. This sounds good. They don't have a serious formula behind it, but kind of it's like, well, who cares ultimately? Because having a formula doesn't make it better. It just makes it more standardized. So I guess that's good, but I mean, it doesn't matter. And no one's really breaking it down and looking at it like that. These are things I feel like only came up when people started really just tearing apart these rules for one reason or another. And they saw that these people were human and they weren't necessarily creating algorithms and doing it. They were just kind of doing stuff that just sort of felt right and, thought right to them. Now, nothing on how they do thieves. Start with low percent stealth abilities, but many low-level monsters grant bonuses to check, like you get a plus 60% with trying to hide from a goblin, minus 60% against a dragon. That's certainly a way you could do it. I tend to like to go with the... I really don't have a thief, so I haven't had to mess with it, but I would probably transfer it over, which I think I talked about, and use the Cleric turntable and just do the HD either of the dungeon, if you want to do levels of the dungeon, or HD of the creatures they're trying to do it against. Do something like that. The one thing that you lose with that is you start getting into that more modern concept of, instead of just doing one check against the world, basically, you're doing one check against all the specific inhabitants, which is something you get in 5th edition. If you're doing a spot check or something, you're matched up against every adversary, whereas you're hiding shadows, it's the whole world is on the other side of that roll. So I might just do level the dungeon, and hey, if you're on the first level of the dungeon, you're easier to hide. And then maybe for things like dragons and things like, or any kind of creatures, you could have that percent surprised kind of thing. Or if they have something like, oh, they have a great sense of smell, your hiding in shadows doesn't mask your smell. So that doesn't help you. Something like that. I haven't really figured it out because I don't have to run any thieves, but I do think that's kind of the big one. If I had to look at what is the glaring flaw in BX that I think needs to be looked at in some way, it's those thief abilities and how they work. But I do want to be careful because everyone's at first level. A fighter in first level is barely, if at all, better at hitting things than anybody else. The only thing they have at first level that the other folks don't have is the ability to wear heavy armor if they can afford it. And you very mellow white roll up a fighter, you roll up starting wealth, and you can't afford more than medium weight armor, which puts you on no better stead than the cleric. And the cleric at least can turn undead and still wear the same stuff you're wearing. So I want to be careful because I think people get in this like, oh, I have to be 100% effective at my job at first level. It's like, no, you don't. And thieves, for all that they're have these flaws in the percentage, they get a lot of tricks to do. They have a lot more stuff to do than a fighter does. And they can do it a lot more because fighters, their only thing really is just when combat starts. But thieves, the whole time you're sneaking around a dungeon, your thief is spotlighted. So you have a lot of opportunity to do your craft. I just think you need to adjust those numbers because they make it really hard to do your craft if a GM is just set on having you roll for every little thing and every opportunity. When you only have 10%, 12%, 20% chance of doing it, chances are you're just failing a lot. And then that just dissuades you from doing really even, trying, especially if, oh, I rolled and I got my 10% hide in shadows, but it's only going to last for a room because then the GM, as soon as we enter the next room or the next quarter, it's going to have me roll again, right? So that's the one I feel like really needs to be worked on. Elfmate says, theory crafters are the worst. So much of what they spout as gospel or math is so absent, any nuance and often considered in isolation. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, theory crafting's fun, but it can be taken too far. And I feel like when they're dismissing whole systems on the basis of things that are only apparent under a microscope, it kind of crosses a line for me. Brian Smith says, I just learned what a coffee lock was, and oh god, the worst groups think BS I've ever seen. I lost track of the 5th edition kind of stuff. What coffee lock? It's what something to do with warlocks and something, but what it allows them to get things back at a short rest, or do I even want to know? I don't even remember. I remember I had to look it up at one point what a coffee lock was, but I don't even remember now. Stochastic Agency says, it depends on how much is connected to progression. There's not a lot connected to it in BX. This is true. Elpis says, it's like saying bears are absolutely deadly and we are all doomed, but they are only really a problem if you run into one, if you go where bears are, if you are not prepared for them, etc., etc. Also true. And then Brian Smith says, learning about the dead pixel is like seeing some Eldritch horror mind shattering. Yes. I have a little ghosting of Netflix that happens on my TV. I have no idea how it happens because we haven't sat on Netflix, and my TV has all kinds of tools for refreshing and is slightly moving things around, and it's got screensavers. But the Netflix thing is only on the color red. If there's something red that fills the screen, I can see the ghost Netflix image logo kind of thing, and it just drives me batty. Thankfully, it only happens on red. But if I had a dead pixel that was showing up all the time and it was obvious, it would start to drive me insane. And probably my wife and daughter may not even notice it. I mean, that's kind of the thing with that stuff. I feel like, look, I think that's actually a good analogy for this. I'm going to give myself a little Barry Orton style pat on the back. Actually, I think he died. So R.I.P. Barry O. He was a jobber for the enhancement talent for the WWF at the time back in the day. Always used to tap himself on the back at the beginning of the matches and then get squashed. It was funny. Terrence says, if you want to be good at stuff out of the gate, play Savage Worlds. I do want to play Savage Worlds. All right, it's been a little bit over an hour, but I'm feeling lucky. I'm going to go for an hour and a half, I think, before I give it a quit. So 15 more minutes. What can we get through in 15 minutes? This is where I'm going to pull up the article that I want to read that's like an hour read. A new dungeon pamphlet for the Undying Sands. I don't know what that is, but I'll give it an upvote anyway. You can have an upvote. You have an upvote. You have an upvote. There was an OSR article in MCDM's latest Arcadia. I haven't read any of the Arcadias. Are they... I've heard good things about them. I've heard the art is amazing. I guess we could check it out. Going to the Matt Colville's. It definitely is pretty, for sure. All right, it's $10 or 12. $10 if you join as a patron. $12. So what's this article? I guess we're not going to get it. I guess we don't have anything to read. Rob Kuntz posts a bonus. I don't know. What's the thing that's supposed to be? Has anyone read this? What's the thing that's supposed to be OSR or OSR Jason? Is it just this? Because it's Rob Kuntz. You get a bonus article presenting a magic item with an adventure inside for the first. Oh, there it is. So this is it. So, okay. So, well, I'm not going to go into it because I'm not going to spend the money right now for it. Maybe I'll check it out later. But if you are a patron or you feel like spending $12 on this latest on Arcadia 12, you get Dimensions of Dauda, which is an OSR thing, which is cool. Hey, take it up, vote. Let's see if we can find one more. Non-minimalist short adventures. I don't know if they're pitching up. I went to give it an upvote, didn't make it. Watercolor fantasy map. I'll give it an upvote. Okay, Grok. I'm just giving everything upvotes today. It's just that kind of Friday. This is a question. I can't quite grasp how to run encounters without a map. Happy Myconid. I'll do this. So maybe, because I do just about everything without a map. But let me see if there's something I can actually take a stab at, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts. Posted by Happy Myconid. I'm looking through the dark of Hot Springs Island and the ultraviolet grasslands, and both of them seem to claim that improvising is a breeze. They have encounter tables and whatnot, but when I play them at the table, my group and I don't know what to do. More specifically, I don't know how to choose the time frame. Is the encounter happening over the course of a few hours, minutes? My group and I don't have a good handle on the surroundings and where everyone can go or what everyone can interact with. Both of these books deal with traveling, but when you roll up an encounter, do you zoom all the way in and start measuring things in mere moments? What's your experience and advice for running these settings? This is actually a huge question. I feel like I got a whole playlist of videos on this stuff. Dave Mills with the fungus joke. I can't upvote your comment, Dave Mills, but I'll highlight you. And then they have an additional question. What types of travel actions can your party take? Do you only let the party choose which direction to go, or do you track foraging and other activities? Boy, there's just too much. So I'm going to zoom in on one thing, and I'd love to hear from you folks in the chat who play Theater of the Mind, because basically it's like, well, how do you deal with a Theater of the Mind encounter? I think maybe the biggest thing. So you're going to have to, you as the GM, your party's in a certain spot, whether it's in a dungeon. And presumably, I'm guessing this person's really talking about the wilderness, because I'm guessing when they're in the dungeon, it makes more sense to them because they have a map that explains where they are. You're in the wilderness. You know roughly where you are in terms, maybe you're in a hex, maybe you're using a more zoomed in map. I don't know. But you're somewhere. Roll a wandering check. Something is happening. Something is here besides you. What do? If you're playing in terms of hours, like you might be in a hex crawl, you're marching for hours and hours. This encounter comes, yes, generally you're now zooming into moment to moment. You're not talking about this encounter happening in slow motion. You're dealing with a first contact between entities. Maybe adversarial. We not necessarily predispose them to be adversarial, unless you roll up something that says enemy army attacks on site. That would certainly take away some options. But a potential adversary, but just another entity or entities, and the party being an entity. First contact. They could both have notices contact at the same time. It could be the party coming in contact with the enemy visually, audibly, something else, traces on the ground, and the enemy not being aware of them yet, or these other entity not being aware of them yet. They could both become aware of each other, or the other entity could become aware of the party and the party not be aware of it. So we have these different factors. We have to figure that in. You could roll your surprise checks. You're rolling how far away they are. So that will enter in too. The first thing, though, or as you're doing that, you need to think about in your brain, where is the party when this happens? If they're in the woods, think about what is woodland terrain. It doesn't have to just be woods. If you've ever been in the forest, you come to clearings. There's streams, brooks, rocky little crevices, It could be hills. Remember in a particular, if you're using hexes in a particular hex, it doesn't, if you see I'm in a forest hex, it doesn't mean it's just wall to wall trees like you're at one of those, Christmas tree farms and it's neat rows of trees as far as the eye can see. It's a whole bunch of different terrain. It's just more woods than anything else. So you need to picture in your brain, where is this taking place? You can roll some dice. However, whatever mechanisms work for you in the moment to place yourself in a particular location. Then you're going to say, okay, here's where I am. And I'm just, okay, in my brain, I have a small, maybe because it's easier and makes sense. Okay, there's a clearing, some wildflowers, trees on all sides of the clearing is maybe a couple 100 feet by a couple 100 feet. The party's on one end of it, going to be at one end. The entities, whatever they are going to be in the other end, and maybe where they're both kind of entering this clearing from opposite sides at the same time. That's the situation. That's just, look, I just came up with that just now. Okay, that's what I determined it is. I know whatever the beasties are. Let's just say goblins. Then I roll up how many goblins there are, and they're coming up on the other side, and then maybe they're making noise. Let's say the party. The goblins are in the surprise state. They don't know that the party is aware of them yet. The party made their roll. They hear the goblins. They can kind of see the shadows of them approaching the far side of the clearing. The party's approaching the near side of the clearing. So that's where they are generally. Now, specifically where your party is, I usually like to keep a marching order, which I will usually ask for as soon as the party enters the wilderness. Anything where they're moving around. In dungeons too, what is your marching order? How far away? How tightly packed are you? Are you having a scout that's 200 feet or 100 feet or 50 feet ahead of you, some distance ahead of you? Are you all packed in together? Whatever that is. Okay, so then that will determine where the people are specifically, the characters are in that space. And then for the goblins or the other people, I might think about what makes sense. Have I decided yet who these goblins are? If it's a goblin hunting party, or if it's a whole goblin family that's just moving, that will determine where I think, okay, there's going to be so many goblins up front and they're spread out over this much area, whatever they are. You'll have to figure that out. You can use dice and other tools to represent what you're doing. And then you're really just running into the same kind of encounter tools you would use if you're in a dungeon. You're going to roll what you're going to figure out what if the party, whoever is in the initiative position. In this case, the party would be, because they know the goblins are there. Goblins do not yet know the party's there. What do they do? And then you just keep going back and forth. Maybe they hail the goblins. They speak goblin. They're on good terms with goblins. They hail them. The goblins hail them back, and they trade something, information, directions, talk about dangers, let the goblins know, hey, there's owl bears that way, so be careful. And the goblins say, oh yeah, there's a village up there, but they're not too nice, or they are very nice, or whatever. That way, if things go sideways, you can roll your initiative and combat, and you just take it from there. Now, I know I probably made this stuff sound easier than it might be if you're new to this stuff, but that's kind of generally where it is. And really what you want to do is knowing if you can follow the things that I just said to do, and that stuff, things like, oh gosh, super difficult, super tricky, I don't know what's going on, then that's where you want to look at, well, which parts do you find super tricky? Find the tools for that. If you need help generating specific little locations you can reuse, make a table of little locations, and then you can roll on those tables, or roll to combine them up. And then you have that. If the positioning, if you get that, okay, well, where they're going to actually be in the space, and I want to know where all the individual trees are, that's the kind of stuff I take for granted. Okay, there are trees around, we have an area that's clear, and we have more trees, that kind of thing. If a player says, I want my character to hide behind a tree, I don't really care which tree it is. Okay, they hide behind, oh yeah, there's plenty of trees, sure, you can hide behind one. I know approximately where they are, so if it comes into, I need to know the exact range, I can roll a die. I can say, well, you're about 40 feet away, so that if a goblin wants to charge, they got to charge basically 40 feet, something like that, right? I can just kind of make that up as it comes and use the information, fictional positioning, to guesstimate close enough to where I need to be. If you want to measure that stuff out, then you can try to find battle maps or things where you can do overlays, and you can use tools like that. But basically, once you've figured out, okay, these are the things I need to do, everyone's going to have their individual areas of what they need help in or what they need more support, and then you can develop the tools. That is kind of my short/long answer for how to do that, which Happy Mike and Ed, you'll probably never see, but maybe someone who comes across this later will be aided by that. Let's see. We have in the chat. Nothing says, I ran Theater of the Mind for a decade, then started using a map with the same players. Anytime I try to go back to Theater of the Mind, the players can't take it and ask me to draw it out. Yeah, I get that. I think that's why I have resisted the call to nothing of going to maps for that reason, because I don't blame them. As players, having the precision, you always would prefer to have as much precision as you can. So if you're going to be getting that precision and then someone wants to take it away from you, I understand totally going, wait, whoa. I want that. Bring that back. I like knowing that with exactitude where I am. But my response usually in those situations when players are asking for some kind of exactitude is you don't have it. It's like, how many rounds do you want to spend with the tape measure that you don't have measuring it out? You got to, your character is guesstimating, trying to eye the distance and eye these factors. So that's where you're at. And so I have resisted that getting a map, but I have no doubt that if I went to some mode for a month or so, or however many sessions of games, started running it with all those tools, and then I tried to back off of it, I would probably have trouble. Maybe I could overcome that trouble if it was really odious. And I said, listen, guys, it's making these maps and getting this stuff prepped, it's just taking up too much time. Maybe I could do it that way, but I might end up not being able to. So I feel you, because I think it will be tough to get back from that. Null Terminated. Hey, Null Terminated says, terrain differences in Hex is why I like the Trilemma Wilderness Travel Legs table idea. I'll have to check that out. I'm not aware of that one, but so thanks for pointing it out. Stochastic Agency says, some people are just visual players. It can still be relative and not exact. You don't need exact positions, no grid necessary. This is true. Yeah, some people are visual. It's hard not to get the grid, though. I feel like because it's so easy to add the grid, I mean, maybe you have experience with that where you're able to just throw up a picture and an image and not have the grid. I just feel like then you get to that point where you start trying to figure out, or because you already have that visual tool, and now you're trying to put the ruler to it, and then it's kind of like, well, can you just have the grid? And maybe it's that slippery slope thing, and you could maybe get to a midpoint where like, okay, I'm going to have the picture, but not the grid. But I kind of think once you get to the picture part, it just seems like if I'm the GM and I'm like, nope, not going to put a grid on it, then either one of the players, because I think if I was a player and my GM's like, I'm just not going to put a grid on it, take that. I just think like, okay, well, I'll put a grid on it. And especially if you're using digital tools that are going to have, even if it's not visible, a grid like Roll20, because you're moving your person around and you can kind of sense the grid, and they have point-to-point tools, you can make the measurement. At some point, you've already kind of lost that fight, I think. And then it's just, well, just put the grid on. But I don't have any personal experience with that. So if you figured out how to get people to buy into the visual tools, but then hold off going all the way, more power to you. Let's see. I see RPG's use of image cards is a fair compromise. I don't know that one. What does ICRPG stand for? But I'll have to Google image cards or DuckDuckGo image cards. Oh, I noticed I did not give them an upvote. I'm just going to read a couple of these comments, and then I think we'll call it quits. So if you recognize this the end of the stream is winding down and you want to bail out, just give a thumbs up first. Oh, Index Card RPG. I keep meaning to look that up, and I keep forgetting. Okay. Go ahead and give a thumbs up on your way out if you decide to bail out a few minutes early. I get it. We all got stuff to do. And if you found yourself in here and you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. And then there's that bell thing if you want to know immediately when I post something. Sir Sergiva says, I think I run it along these lines. 1, you roll an encounter. 2, you determine how the party encounters the creatures. 3, either you make a reaction roll or just decide what the encountered creatures do. 4, you describe the situation and invite the players to act. Up ahead, you notice a half humanoids with primitive weaponry. Judging by their posture, they seem to be on guard against you, but don't act yet. What do you do? Or, half a dozen savage warriors ambush you. They look incredibly aggressive and out for blood. Roll initiative. After that, the outcome depends on the party's actions. Give that a thumbs up. And then we have the user Pendesmos adds, and if you're going to do an ambush by 6 words, at least start setting them up for that beforehand. Let them know that ambushes are known to happen from XXXX faction. Communicate that as they're going along. They notice it's very quiet, etc. Yeah, it's good to a degree. I think, by the way, these people always ambush folks. Not always common knowledge. It kind of defeats the purpose of an ambush if everybody knows you ambush all the time. But yeah, in some situations, oh, that road's dangerous because there's some bandits out there and they're constantly ambushing travelers, sure. Other things may not be appropriate. Some stuff is nice, but part of it is ambushes would never work if they were foreshadowed with such certainty. But yeah, you can you can definitely season your narrative with some cues and clues. Let's see. And Pandesmos, which I'm not going to read this one because it seems quite long. Seems to be talking specifically about Hot Springs Island. All right, I think that's about it. All right, well, I don't think I have anything else to add on that one. I think I will finish up on that. Stochastic Agency, here for the long haul. Awesome. Well, you made it, Stochastic. You made it to the end. This is the end. Again, if you can give an upvote on your way out, I'd appreciate it. Everybody, have a great rest of your Friday as we're recording this and streaming this. And of course, if you find this later, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you're watching or listening to this. That's all for this OSR Reddit Roundup. Game on. Talk to you later, everybody.